Be me, Steven, 32. Make a living in cybersecurity, stable career, solid income, constant digital fires to put out. Been married to Mariana for about half a decade. I always believed we functioned as a unit. I focused on keeping the financial side strong while she shaped our place into something that actually felt like a home. It felt balanced. I never reduced myself to just the paycheck. In my mind, I was a partner working alongside my wife to build something lasting. The mortgage on our house was mostly based on my income. I paid about 80% of it, plus utilities, car insurance, all the big stuff. She worked in marketing, made a decent salary, but it was nothing compared to mine. Her money was mostly for her personal stuff, clothes, lunches with her friends, hobbies. I was fine with that. Happy wife, happy life, and all that. I never once held it over her head, never said, I paid for this, so you have to do that. It was just our life. I'd come home from a 10-hour day of dealing with server meltdowns and phishing attacks, and she'd have dinner ready. It felt balanced. We were happy. Then, about a year ago, things started to shift. It was slow at first, almost unnoticeable. She got a new group of friends at work, the brunch type. Suddenly, our quiet evenings were filled with recaps of their conversations. New words started entering her vocabulary, words like patriarchy, emotional labor, and weaponized incompetence. At first, I just nodded along, thought it was just a phase, some corporate buzzword thing. Then she started applying it to us. I'd offer to take out the trash, something I always did. She'd say, "You're only doing that because society expects men to do the heavy chores. It's a performative act. I'm just trying to take out the garbage, man." It got weirder. We went out for our anniversary to a nice steakhouse, my treat. I picked the place because she loves it. Halfway through dinner, she gets this weird look on her face. Tells me that me paying for everything is a form of subtle financial control. Says it creates an uneven power dynamic. I'm just sitting there with a $150 ribeye, completely baffled. I tried to explain that I pay because I want to, because I make significantly more, because it makes me happy to treat my wife. That was the wrong thing to say. Apparently that sentiment is a product of toxic masculinity. My desire to provide was actually a desire to control. The car ride home was silent. I felt like I'd walked into a minefield. The TikTok started not long after. I'd be on the couch trying to decompress after work, and all I could hear from her phone was that robotic female voice over some video of a woman yelling. Every video was about how men are trash, how relationships are a scam, and how women are constantly being exploited. She'd look up from her phone and stare at me, like she was reevaluating our entire marriage through this new, warped lens. The arguments became more frequent. Everything I did was wrong. If I bought her a surprise gift, it was to create a sense of obligation. If I offered to handle a bill she was stressed about, I was infantilizing her and robbing her of her agency. If I asked what she spent a few $100s on from our joint account, I was being a financial tyrant. The joint account was the main battlefield. I put in about 90% of the funds. It was for household expenses, but it had slowly become her personal slush fund. Daily Starbucks runs, new outfits for brunch, random Amazon purchases. When I tried to suggest we budget better, it was a declaration of war. She accused me of wanting to put her on an allowance, said I didn't trust her, said I saw her as my property, not my partner. It was exhausting. I was working harder than ever to maintain our lifestyle, and all I got in return was criticism and suspicion. I felt like I was living with a stranger. The warm, loving woman I married was replaced by a perpetually aggrieved social justice warrior. My buddy Bennett saw it happening. We'd grab a beer, and I'd vent. He'd just shake his head. He'd been through a nasty divorce and was wary of all this stuff. He told me, "Dude, she doesn't see you anymore. She sees a concept, a walking, talking embodiment of the patriarchy she reads about online." He was right. I wasn't Steven anymore. I was the man. The breaking point came a few months ago. She announced she wanted to go on a girls' trip to Miami with her new work friends for a long weekend. Sounded expensive, but whatever. I told her to have fun. Then she dropped the bomb. She expected me to pay for her flight and her share of the Airbnb. I asked why. Her salary could easily cover it. The look she gave me was pure venom. The argument was that since I earn the family-sustaining income, my money is our money, while her money is her money. She said I owed it to her as compensation for all the unpaid emotional labor she does in the marriage. I asked her to define emotional labor. She said it was things like remembering birthdays and managing the social calendar and being the primary emotional support. I reminded her that my phone calendar remembers birthdays. We barely have a social calendar, and the only emotional support happening lately was me absorbing her constant lectures. That was a mistake. The fight lasted for 2 hours. It ended with her in tears, accusing me of devaluing her and being emotionally abusive. I was so tired, just completely drained. I ended up transferring the money, about $800, just to make it stop. She went on her trip. Her Instagram was full of pictures of them drinking expensive cocktails on a yacht. Hashtag boss babes, hashtag feminist energy. While she was gone, I met up with Bennett. I laid it all out for him. The constant criticism, the bizarre logic, the financial demands. I told him I was thinking about divorce. I couldn't live like this. Bennett listened patiently, then he leaned forward. He said, "Divorce is the nuclear option. Before you go there, try something else. It's called malicious compliance." I asked him what he meant. He said, "She wants to be a strong, independent woman. She wants a true 50-50 partnership. Fine. Give it to her. Give her exactly what she's screaming for. Not what she thinks it means, but what it actually means. Down to the last penny." He told me to stop arguing, stop defending myself, just agree. He said, "Let her experience the full reality of her ideology. See how long she lasts." A switch flipped in my head. He was right. Arguing was pointless. I was trying to use logic against an emotional firestorm fueled by online articles. The only way to win was to not play her game. I had to make her play by her own rules. I went home that night with a plan, a cold, clear, logical plan. Mariana came back from Miami tanned and, if possible, even more self-righteous. She'd apparently been radicalized further by her friends. She sat me down at the kitchen table. It felt like a formal HR meeting. She had a list, a literal handwritten list. "Stephen," she started in her most serious voice, "we need to restructure our marriage. The current dynamic is unsustainable, and frankly, it's a patriarchal relic." I just sat there, silent, letting her talk. She went on for 20 minutes. It was a pre-rehearsed monologue full of buzzwords. The gist was this. She felt oppressed by my financial position. She felt that our entire relationship was built on a foundation of her dependency on me, and it was stifling her. Then came the ultimatum. "From now on," she declared, "I want a true partnership. Everything, and I mean everything, needs to be split exactly 50-50. The mortgage, the bills, the groceries, all of it. We will be equal partners. No more financial control. No more uneven power dynamics." She sat back, arms crossed, clearly expecting another 2-hour fight. This was it. The moment Bennett told me to watch for. I looked at her, held her gaze for a few seconds, and then gave her a calm, simple nod. "Okay," I said. The look on her face was priceless. Total confusion. She stuttered, What? Just okay?" "Yes, you're right," I said, keeping my voice perfectly even. "I've been thinking about it, and you're absolutely right. I apologize if my role as the primary earner has made you feel controlled. It was never my intention. I respect your desire for true equality. Let's do it. 50-50. Starting the 1st of next month." Her brain was visibly malfunctioning. She had a whole speech prepared for my rebuttal, and I had just diffused it with complete agreement. After a moment of stunned silence, her confusion morphed into smug triumph. She actually smirked. She thought she'd won. She thought she'd finally broken me down, and I was capitulating. "Oh, you sweet summer child." "Great," she said, her confidence surging. "I'm glad you're finally seeing things clearly." She immediately got on her phone, probably texting her friends in their group chat. "OMG, you guys, he finally caved. Hashtag equality, hashtag partnership goals." I just sat there and sipped my water. The rest of the evening was surreal. She was walking around with this air of victory, like a general who had just won a major battle. I, on the other hand, felt a strange sense of peace. The fighting was over. The rules of the new game had been set. by her. All I had to do was enforce them. That night, I went into my home office. I opened a new Excel spreadsheet. I titled it Project Equality. I spent the next 2 hours combing through our bank statements, credit card bills, and household accounts for the past 6 months. I listed every single recurring expense. Mortgage, $3,200. Property tax, escrow, $600. Homeowner's insurance, $150. Utilities, electric, gas, water, sewer, trash. Average of $450 per month. Internet, $80. Car insurance for both cars, $220. Health insurance, I carry her on my plan, $550 premium. Streaming services, Netflix, Hulu, HBO Max, Disney Plus, Spotify, Family, $78. Groceries, average of $900 per month. The list went on. Pest control service, lawn care service, the security system subscription. The grand total of our basic shared living expenses came out to roughly $6,228 per month. Her half, $3,114. I checked her estimated take-home pay online for her profession and salary bracket. After taxes, she was probably bringing in around $3,800 a month. This new arrangement would leave her with less than $700 for the entire month. That had to cover her gas, her car payment, her student loans, her phone bill, her clothes, her lunches, her hobbies, any personal savings. MFW. I realized she had no idea what was coming. I created a shared Google Sheet and populated it with all the data. I set up formulas to automatically calculate each person's share. I added a section for variable shared expenses where we could log things like takeout, movie tickets, household supplies, etc. It was a thing of beauty, cold, impartial, and brutally fair. The next morning, I sent her an email with the link to the spreadsheet. Subject, Project Equality, Financial Transparency. Body. Hi Mariana, as per our discussion, I've created this spreadsheet to track all our shared expenses and ensure a transparent and equitable 50-50 split. Please review it when you have a moment. Looking forward to our new partnership. Love, Stephen. I heard her phone buzz in the other room. A few minutes later, she walked into the kitchen, looking at her phone with a slight frown. This is very detailed, she said. Transparency is key to a true partnership, I replied, not looking up from my coffee. She didn't say anything else. I think the sheer number of line items was a bit of a shock. She'd never had to think about property taxes or the details of the health insurance premium before. It was just stuff that got paid. The last week of the month was tense. It was like the Cold War. We were polite, but there was a definite chill in the air. She was still riding high on her victory, but I could see a flicker of uncertainty in her eyes whenever she looked at that spreadsheet. The first of the month arrived. It was a Friday, payday for both of us. I went to our joint account, which we agreed to use as a household bill pay account. I transferred my share, exactly $3,114, from my personal account. Then I set up a recurring transfer for that amount for the first of every month. Automated, impartial. I sent her a brief text. My half for June is in the joint account. Please transfer your half when you get a chance so the mortgage and other bills can be paid on time. The response didn't come for an hour. Okay, will do. That night, I checked the account. The money was there. A huge chunk of her paycheck, gone in an instant. We ordered dinner in that night, Thai food, our usual spot. The total came to $52. As we were eating, I pulled out my phone, opened the Venmo app, and sent her a request for $26. Memo. Thai food 50-50. She looked at her phone when it buzzed. Her eyes widened. She looked up at me, a flicker of disbelief on her face. Are you serious? She asked. Of course, I said calmly. Equal partners, 50-50. She stared at me, then reluctantly opened the app and paid it. The meal seemed a little less enjoyable for her after that. The first weekend of Project Equality was enlightening. On Saturday, she mentioned wanting to go see a movie. I said, sounds good. Tickets are $18 each. You want to get the tickets and I'll pay you back. Or should I get them and you Venmo me? She suddenly decided she'd rather stay in. On Sunday, we were running low on paper towels. I said, "I'm making a run to Target. I'll grab them. A six-pack is $14.99. Your half is $7.50. She replied, "Never mind, I'll just use a dish towel." The small, everyday costs that she had never even thought about were suddenly appearing right in front of her. Each one was a tiny paper cut to her budget and her ideology. The real fun began in the second week. Her friends invited her out for their usual Friday night cocktails. This was a weekly ritual. They'd go to some trendy bar where a single drink cost $20. She'd usually have 3 or 4. She came to me in the living room, looking hesitant. "I'm going out with the girls," she said. "Okay, have fun," I replied, looking at my laptop. There was an awkward pause. Then she said, "I'm a little short on cash until my next check." This was the moment, the first test. "Oh, that's tough," I said with synthetic sympathy. "Have you considered using a credit card?" "I'm trying not to run up a balance," she said, the implication hanging in the air. She was asking for money. I looked at her. "Well, I can't help you. My money is my money, just like your money is yours. That's the foundation of our new equal partnership, remember?" I used her own words against her. It was beautiful. The frustration on her face was palpable. She was being trapped by her own rules. She ended up going, but she came home after only an hour and a half. I later saw a Venmo charge on her feed to her friend for $22. One sad drink. She was miserable. And it was only week 2. The rest of the second week was a blur of petty Venmo requests. I bought a case of toilet paper, requested $11.50 from her. The water filter for the fridge needed replacing, requested $22. She used the last of the laundry detergent. I added it to the grocery list and told her we'd split it. She started hand-washing some of her clothes in the sink to save money. Every transaction, no matter how small, became a documented event in our Project Equality spreadsheet. I was relentless. I was a machine. This wasn't about the money for me. It was about the principle. She wanted equality. I was going to give her a dose of it so pure and unfiltered it would poison her. By week 3, the novelty had completely worn off for her, and the grim reality was setting in. Her budget was in shambles. Her fun money was gone. Her savings were being drained by 1,000 tiny cuts. The grocery store trip was a major turning point. We used to shop together. It was a nice little routine. We'd wander the aisles, pick out things for the week. Now, it was like 2 separate hostile nations navigating a demilitarized zone. We went with 2 separate carts. My cart, ribeye steaks, fresh salmon, organic vegetables, a 6-pack of my favorite IPA, good coffee, some expensive cheese, the stuff we always used to buy. Her cart, generic brand pasta, a jar of the cheapest sauce, ramen noodles, a loaf of store-brand bread, hot dogs. I saw her standing in the cereal aisle, staring at a box of her favorite granola. It was $7.99. She looked at it for a full minute, then picked up the giant bag of generic Frosted Flakes for $3.50 and put it in her cart with a sigh. It was a small moment, but it was everything. At the checkout, we paid separately. The cashier gave us a weird look. When we got home, we had to label our food in the fridge. I put my steaks on a shelf. She put her hot dogs in the drawer below. It was absurd. We were living like hostile college roommates. That night, I grilled myself a perfect medium-rare ribeye. She sat across from me, eating a bowl of plain pasta with a little bit of butter. The silence was deafening. I didn't offer her any of my steak, not a single bite. That wasn't part of the deal. Her social life, which had been the catalyst for this whole mess, began to crumble. Her brunch friends kept inviting her out. She had to keep making excuses. Not feeling well, have to work, busy weekend. They weren't stupid. They knew she was broke. One of her friends, the ringleader of the Smash the Patriarchy Club, apparently called her out on it. Mariana came home fuming one night after a long phone call. She was ranting about how her friends were being unsupportive. Apparently, they'd told her to just ask Stephen for the money, since he obviously has it. They told her she was failing the feminist cause by letting a man's financial games control her social life. The irony was so thick I could have cut it with a knife. Her own ideology was being used to shame her. Her support system wasn't a support system. It was an echo chamber that only worked when things were easy. The moment she couldn't afford the $25 avocado toast, they turned on her. She was completely isolated, trapped in a prison of her own making, and the guards were the very principles she claimed to champion. Towards the end of the first month, the first major crack appeared. Her phone bill was due. It was on a separate plan from mine. She came to me while I was watching TV. She had that hesitant, nervous energy again. "So, I was thinking," she began, in that soft voice she uses when she wants something. "This whole 50-50 thing is working really well for the big shared bills. It's so organized." I just grunted in response, not taking my eyes off the screen. "But for our personal stuff," she continued, "maybe we could be a bit more collaborative, like we used to be." I muted the TV and turned to look at her. "Define collaborative," I said. "Well, she stammered, "if one of us is in a tight spot, the other could help out, as a partner." "Are you in a tight spot, Mariana?" I asked directly. She deflated. "My phone bill is due, and I'm a little short, and my car needs gas." "So you're asking me for money?" "I'm asking my husband for help," she shot back, a hint of her old fire returning. I leaned back on the couch. "Let me see if I understand the new rules," I said, putting on a thoughtful expression. "My income is mine. Your income is yours. We are two separate independent financial entities who have entered into a partnership to share living expenses on a strict 50-50 basis. Is that correct?" She just stared at me, her mouth a thin line. "So, if I were to help you out," I continued, "that wouldn't be a partnership. That would be me, the person with more resources, subsidizing you, the person with fewer resources. Doesn't that sound an awful lot like the patriarchal system of financial dependency you wanted to escape?" Checkmate. The anger in her eyes was quickly replaced by a look of sheer desperation. She knew I had her. I was using the exact logic she had preached at me for months. She turned and walked out of the room without another word. I found out later she had to call her parents and ask them for money. For a 30-year-old woman who prided herself on being a strong, independent feminist, that must have been the ultimate humiliation. The first month ended. The second month began. Another $3,114 vanished from her account on the first. The grim routine continued. I was living my life exactly as before, if not better. With all the money I was saving from not funding her lifestyle, my personal savings account was growing at a record pace. I bought myself a new top-of-the-line gaming PC. She saw the boxes arrive from Amazon and just glared at me. She, on the other hand, looked like she was fading. There were dark circles under her eyes. She was constantly stressed. She canceled her hair appointment. Her roots started showing. She stopped getting her nails done. She canceled her monthly beauty subscription box. All the little luxuries that she had considered necessities, all paid for by my income, were stripped away one by one. She was experiencing the lifestyle that her salary could actually afford, and she hated it. She tried a few more times to find loopholes in our new system. She suggested we invest in a new TV for the living room, a massive 85-inch OLED. I said, "Great idea. It's $4,000. Your half is $2,000. Let me know when you have it and we can go pick it up." The subject was never brought up again. She complained that the house was getting messy. I reminded her that we used to have a cleaning service once a month, which I paid for. I told her I'd be happy to hire them again. "It's $200 a visit. Your half is $100. Should I book it?" She started cleaning the house herself, with a furious, resentful energy. The real catalyst, the event that brought the entire charade crashing down, was her car. She drove an older but stylish compact SUV. It had been making a weird rattling noise for weeks. I had pointed it out. "You should get that checked out," I had said. Her response was, "Don't tell me how to manage my property." So I dropped it. Not my car, not my problem. That was the new rule. One afternoon, I got a call. It was Mariana. She was stranded on the side of the highway. The car had just died. Smoke was pouring from under the hood. I had to leave work to go pick her up. She was sitting on the curb, waiting for a tow truck. She was crying. For a second, a flicker of the old me, the husband, wanted to comfort her, to tell her it would be okay. But I stamped it out. This was a financial transaction now, not a marital crisis. The tow truck took the car to her regular mechanic. I drove her home in silence. The call from the shop came the next day. I was in my office when she took the call in the kitchen. I could hear her side of the conversation. Hello? Yes, this is she. Oh, wow. Are you sure? Is there a cheaper way to do it? I see. Okay, thank you. She hung up the phone. She walked into my office. Her face was as white as a sheet. She looked like she'd seen a ghost. She stood there for a moment, just staring at me. What did they say? I asked, my voice neutral. Her voice was a tiny whisper. The transmission is completely shot, and the noise, it was a problem with the timing belt. It snapped and wrecked the engine. I already knew where this was going. So, what's the damage? She took a deep breath, like she was about to plunge into icy water. The total to repair everything, she said, her voice cracking, is $4,500. I just nodded slowly. Wow, that's a lot. I didn't offer to pay. I didn't offer a solution. I just stated the fact. She just kept staring at me, waiting. The silence stretched on for what felt like an eternity. Finally, she broke. Stephen, I don't have that kind of money, she said, tears welling up in her eyes. I don't even have a fraction of that. I can't afford it. That is a difficult situation, I said, my voice as calm as a surgeon's. A difficult situation, she shrieked, the desperation finally boiling over into anger. That's all you have to say? It's my car. I need it to get to work. What am I supposed to do? You could take the bus, I suggested, or maybe get a loan. A loan? My credit is terrible because of my student debt, and I can't take the bus. It takes 2 hours. You have to help me. This was the moment of truth, the culmination of 2 months of this ridiculous experiment. Why do I have to help you? I asked, genuinely curious to hear her logic. Because you're my husband, she cried, as if that was some magic phrase that would solve everything. And you're my wife, I replied, but we are equal partners. That car is your personal property. Its maintenance and repair are your personal responsibility, per the terms of our partnership, which you yourself drafted. She was openly sobbing now, big, ugly tears. I can't do this anymore, she wailed. This isn't working. I hate this. I hate splitting everything. I hate having no money. I hate eating cheap food. I want things to go back to the way they were. She finally said it, the magic words I had been waiting to hear. The way they were? I asked, my voice dropping, losing its fake neutrality and taking on a cold, hard edge. I stood up from my desk. You mean, back to the way it was when I paid for 90% of our life? When my salary covered the mortgage, the bills, the vacations, the fancy dinners, your car maintenance, your shopping sprees? She nodded meekly, wiping tears from her face. Yes. Back to the way it was, I continued, stepping closer to her. When you took my money, enjoyed the lifestyle it provided, and in return, you called me a patriarchal oppressor? You accused me of financial abuse? You sat at brunch with your friends, in a restaurant I paid for, and complained about how you were being held in a financial cage? Her face fell. The reality of what I was saying was hitting her like a physical blow. You want to go back to the system, where my role was to work myself to the bone to be a silent wallet, and your role was to enjoy the benefits while telling me that my very nature was toxic. I let the questions hang in the air. She had nothing to say. There was no defense. No, Mariana, I said, my voice final. We are never going back to the way it was. You wanted equality. You demanded it. You built this new system. Well, congratulations. You've achieved it. This is what it looks like. This is what it feels like to be responsible for yourself. Welcome to adulthood. She completely broke down, collapsing onto the floor in a heap of sobs. I just stood there, watching her. I didn't feel anger. I didn't feel pity. I felt nothing. Just a profound, hollow emptiness. The woman I loved was gone. She had been replaced by this child, throwing a tantrum because her ideological fantasy had collided with the brick wall of reality. I turned around, walked back to my desk, and sat down. I put on my headphones and went back to work. Her crying was just background noise. I don't know what's going to happen now. She's been sleeping in the guest room for 3 days. She sold her laptop and some designer bags to a pawn shop to get the money for a down payment on the car repairs. Our marriage is a hollow shell, a business arrangement between two roommates who hate each other. Maybe this is what she wanted, a partner who was just a co-signer on the bills. She got her 50-50 split. But in the process, she lost 100% of the man who would have moved heaven and earth for her. She just never realized that what I provided wasn't just money. It was security. It was support. It was love. And you can't split that 50-50.